Loom wise, I'm going to split this into two parts. We're going to make a standalone wiring loom to suit an Ls1, and then we are going to do the patrol side of the wiring. So get your loom, unwrap all of the plastic off of it. That's your first step, and just lay it out like we have here. And then we're going to go and chase some wires. I recommend having a pinout, ECU pinout, which you can get from like Google or something. That's going to make your life a lot easier. So we'll get in close in a sec, and yeah, we'll start going through what wires we need. Okay, so first up, you're going to find that you have this plug, which is in a group of 3 plugs. Sometimes there will be a 4th plug, depending on what year loom you have. In there, you're going to find a green wire and a red wire. Now, if you follow these green and red wires, they will come down and they will branch out to this bank of wiring, which I haven't unwrapped, and this bank of wiring, which I haven't unwrapped. Those wires correspond to this red wire and this green wire. They are the coil power wires. So we're going to split those off, and they're going to run down next to our ECU plugs. Helps take a bit of masking tape and just label what they are. Because this was an auto loom, we are going to be removing quite a lot of wiring that is no longer required. So yeah, I'm going to split those off, run them down next to our ECU plugs, and we'll just slowly sort through all our plugs and all of our wiring, and we'll get this turned into a standalone loom quite quickly. The next one we're going to do is these auto transmission plugs. Normally have our oxygen sensors sitting down next to them. We're just going to split those out and run those down into our own new loom. And then what we can do is everything on this side can get lopped off. We don't need the auto trans plugs, the speed sensors, or the other sensors. So literally just going to cut all of these off, trace them back to the BCM, the auto trans computer, or the ECU, and we're going to de-pin them. So literally grab your pliers, cut through them, follow them back through. You're going to end up with a whole heap of single stranded wires, so just pull them back through the loom and chuck them aside because you don't need them anymore. Okay, so as you can see, we've gotten rid of that main set of plugs that would have gone to the auto trans, and we're left with our 2 oxygen sensors and our crank angle sensor. Now this part of the loom can now start to get rewrapped all the way out to this section here. So we can tidy all that back up, and we can continue on down our loom path. So we will be making this plug redundant, this plug redundant, and most of those plugs redundant as well. They won't be used, but the wires will remain. So once we've rewrapped this, we've gotten back up to this area here, we'll start tidying it all of it up and make it all nice and easy to follow. Okay, so the last wire that we need is the one that activates our AC clutch, which is a green wire. Our red and black isn't. You'll find that this wire splits to the ECU and goes off to our main plug as well. We don't want to cut the ECU connection because that will allow idle up control, but we do want to cut it at the plug. Now, on a patrol, the easiest spot to tap into the AC wire is right next to our oil pressure sensor. So we're just going to fold it back onto the loom and connect it and tape it and just have it poke out of our loom, and we'll connect that running with our sub loom that we use exclusively for the patrol. While we're in with that plug, this pink wire here is for our Purge Solenoid. That needs 12 volts run through to it because the ECU negatively switches it. So we're going to grab this one and run it over with our 2 coil wires. Out of these 2 plugs, if you've obviously had an auto loom, The only wire you need is in this plug, and it's this yellow wire. On this plug you'll find a green and white wire. That wire is for your fuel pump. Split that off and run it next to your purge and injector coil powers. On this grey plug you'll find a brown wire. That is your tacho signal. Split that off, run it next to your other pair. That leaves us on the grey plug with these three wires. Our orange and pink are battery and ignition. I believe our blue is our crank signal. We'll need those, and after that you can just go through and de-pin all of these wires from the ECU plug and tape it all up. You're done. As you can see, that's my loom all wrapped up, nice and neat. This is my takeoff. These are my wires that I need. So, yeah, coil 1. Where's my coil 2? Fuel pump relay. Purge solenoid. Brown for tacho. Yellow is our OBD. Pink is our ignition. And orange is our battery. Now, keep in mind a couple of these colours repeat inside the loom. So make sure you're taking the ones from the plugs, not just cutting any old loom. And that's how we do our takeoff. Now, I'm going to go and get a relay block for our fuel pump power, and I'm also going to go and get a fuse block for our powers for our coils. With that, I'm going to get another relay block. So what we'll do is, when the computer receives the ignition on signal, that will activate the relay. That will turn on power to the coil 1, coil 2, and to the purge, so that it doesn't have permanent power, otherwise it's going to offer a parasitic drain. So I'll go grab a few of those and we'll be all sweet. Just so you know, yes, you don't have to strip out the loom, but to give you an idea, that's how much wire I've pulled out of a loom that isn't required, which the less wiring you have to chase when you're doing a conversion, the better. See you guys.